of the show. And with me is the Executive Director of Youth Aide Africa, Kyokwijuka. Welcome to the show, Alexander.
Thank you so much, Billy. Good morning, viewers.
Well, yesterday the President launched the Anti-Corruption Task Force from State House. Still on the same day, it was the International Anti-Corruption Day and the Human Rights Day.
Sure.
Well, two very monumental days in the international calendar. Well, and you know that Uganda is ranked 151st out of 175 countries in the Corruption Perception Index in the world.
Sure.
So we have come a long way in the fight against corruption.
Sure. Thank you, Billy. To say something about the conundrum between yesterday being International Human Rights Day and at the same time Anti-Corruption Day here, in itself is an act of corruption, because I want to think that the framers and the organizers of yesterday must have done that in a way of trying to corrupt the day, because Uganda has been at the forefront in terms of abusing human rights. So I think yesterday was a day supposed to have given us a chance to talk about some of these evils. But yes, it's a good gesture from the head of state and the government to put measures to say that we want to fight corruption. But whether and when we are going to have this materialize is another question. And for me, I think that there's a lot that is still desired in terms of that, and I hope that we can always find a way of having this dealt with.
Well, with an addition of yet another unit to fight corruption in the country, because we have police itself, we have a division of court to fight corruption, we have the IGG. Of course, police doubles as one of the biggest perpetrators of corruption, and still a body that is supposed to fight corruption at the same time.
Sure.
But we have a lot of units in the country. Do you think that this is going to, including an addition of a state house, a special unit, let's say, with the president's ear?
You see, I think, number one, I want us to appreciate that corruption is something that's very sophisticated, especially...
Well, the IGG says...
Exactly, the IGG says it's very sophisticated, and I want to agree with that, because you have people who have grown up without the basic moral virtues of honesty, integrity, patience, confidence, humility, and these are the same people who are growing to get into these public offices. And someone grows up knowing that, hey, I am this and the other, and I'm entitled to this.
Well, so some people, of course, would say they have a sense of entitlement.
Exactly, and over time. So you realize that it is something that I think we need divine intervention to actually have it forward. Otherwise, another unit in itself will not necessarily help, because you have the IGG, and the IGG has really tried to do a lot of work in terms of unearthing some of these evil acts by public officials and all the others, contract committees and all of these processes, which are marred by severe corruption. But you ask yourself, the IGG has made several thousands and thousands of recommendations about people who have been corrupt and who have misused public funds and who have behaved in a manner that does not really befit the public conduct and all that. But the IGG's office can only end at recommending. There is another arm that must execute these recommendations. Is there the political will? Is there the seriousness?
The question of political will has always come up,
exactly,
time and again.
Exactly.
Is there a will to fight corruption in the country? Because most times the country, let's say the executive itself, comes under pressure when the government was founded on principles of coalitions. We have different people from different political aspirations and the likes that are in the government, and most of them are untouchable, sure, to say in a way.
Yeah.
The country still faces a problem of does the government want to fight corruption? And I'm not talking about one branch of the government. the entire government as itself.
Sure. You see, there are very many people who are benefiting from corruption.
Yeah.
Including, don't get surprised, me and you. So sometimes when it's like you saying that I am climbing a tree and the tree is helping me to run away from a snake and I want to cut down this tree. You remember the story of the monkey making a decision on whether the bush should be burnt or something? And that is exactly what we are in, because at the end of the day, you realize that very many people are benefiting from this corruption. And it has become a system of its sort. It's sort of becoming an ideology. And waking up and saying, today I want to fight corruption. When you bear it and you surely know that it is actually what puts food on your table, it is just an act. It's just a joke, you know.
So what would someone say if someone out there watching? We all know that we all know the repercussions of corruption and what. Unlike some politicians who have come out to say that there is no evidence. If I'm quoting him right.
Sure.
One politician, he's not actually a politician, he's a journalist. Mr. Andrew Mwenda said there's no evidence that corruption does not lead to development.
Sure.
Yeah. So many people will be thinking, yes, what is the way forward for a country like Uganda?
I want to just make a comment about that. You see, if someone steals 10 billions government funds and goes somewhere and puts up a school, this school is going to provide services to the local people. In a way, if you are forgiving people, you can forgive this gentleman or this lady, compared to one who steals the 10 billions and goes and builds a mansion where he wants to sleep with his family and, you know, and that is it. But majority of our leaders and what they are doing is that they are stealing from public coffers. They go and build posh homes. They buy a lot of property, and sometimes I think they even die before they can utilize that property. So I think that way it becomes a big problem. But if people are actually getting this money and trying to see how they can also contribute to the growth and development of the country, it would be understandable. And we would say, okay, you see where I come from, we say that even when you produce a child with any defects, it is still your child. So if we would say that these people, yes, they are errant, they do A, B, C, and D, but they are doing something good and they are helping us. So we would kill one eye and say, okay, these ones they can go. But you see, where someone gets money, for instance, I will take you back to when we were supposed to have money meant for the internally displaced people in northern Uganda, in the opium scandal, and a lot of money was misused for personal use. Recently, I was talking to someone who happens to have been an official in the opium then. He was telling me, you see, we used to get a lot of money and we would go to the field and we really enjoyed the money.
The government has yet again been mad in another scandal.
Exactly.
Where the United Nations funds meant for refugees.
Yes.
I think most times people were wondering, why is Uganda being so generous?
I know.
Yeah, but it turns out that...
It turns out to be the other way around, that
yes.
people are actually using that advantage to pick what they can pick, and, you know, and for me it hurts me because I do not know what it costs to be humble, to be so satisfied with the little that you have or the little that you're entitled to. I don't know why you should go ahead to dip your hand into your other, you know, friends, you know, pocket. When I was growing up some time back, it was a very big crime during eating time for you to look into your friend's plate. Actually, I remember my late mother, may her soul rest in peace. If you ever were caught doing that, you would receive a hot slap immediately, because we were always given a plate of food, and by all means, definitely had to be equal measure. So you were supposed to look into your plate, eat, finish yours, and in case you were not satisfied, you would ask for some more food. But if you were seen to be looking into your other, your other friend's plate, it was looked as an act of misbehavior, and you had to be punished. And I think that's what some of the people that we have who are causing us problems and mayhem, I think they were not beaten at that time. That's why even when they're entitled to A, B, C, and D, they still want to go ahead and look into our other plates to see what is there and what they can take, and which I think is wrong, because, and I think that is why we are having problems. Find hospitals, the medicine is not enough, schools, materials that don't reach, money does not. You find that by the time we construct a road, it's supposed to be 9 layers, someone has already taken 3 layers, so by all means we must get a 6-layer road instead of a 9 one. So a lot of funny things, and I think as a country, it's high time we get tired and say, this must stop because it's not taking us anywhere.
Well, besides functional corruption, because functional corruption is that type of corruption where there is some bit of progress. Yes, some funds might be misappropriated and disappear in the process, but there is some level of progress. You'd see that in most cases in Africa, we have the kind of corruption that is retrogressive. There is no development at all. If they were supposed to have maybe a road, there'll be no road.
Sure.
Besides that, the big question on everyone's mind is, what happens? Does the new unit of State House unit, does that get the work done? Should the country be expectant that errant police, because the president, according to the president, traffic police is the main culprit in bribery and the likes.
Sure.
Does the new unit get the job done?
You see, Billy, recently I mentioned here that the person of President Yoweri Museveni Kaguta, the son of Kaguta, who says he does not need any polishing, he, I think, is the most and the wisest and tricky politician this country has ever seen. And he has mastered the political games on how to manage this country. And I can tell you that he is not stupid to appoint a new unit at this particular time. I can tell you that that unit, I don't expect much from them. It is just another political appointment meant to appease a few people who have probably helped the president.
Some people would of course say that whenever there's a disgruntled section of his support base, some new position is created or
exactly.
And the appeasement policy.
Exactly, yeah, it's the appeasement policy, because do you want to tell me that the president does not know that the office of the IGG has made several recommendations that need execution? That in his prerogative as a president, he can actually say, hey, he can sanction all those files, and uses his power as a president, for instance, to chase away the ministers who have been implicated in some of these cases.
Including his brother-in-law.
Well, exactly, if he's one of the culprits.
Yeah.
Including, the people who are not supposed to, who are not eligible for reappointment, So, all these things are known. It's not rocket science. You don't have to have a PhD in psychology and understanding human behavior to know that such people are actually a problem. But you going ahead to create another unit is definitely an act. It's a political act, and as who understand politics, we appreciate that he had better do it now, because it will help him.
It's helping his political.
Yes,
what you're saying, it's helping his political career more than it's helping the country.
Now many people now are tempted to be fooled that the president has now moved to crack a whip on those who are corrupt, and they will be making a few things here and there. But at the end of the day, what impact is this going to create? What is the motivation behind the creation of this unit? Who are the people on this unit? Because I will tell you that much as we make noise about the corrupt people in the public arena, especially in political office, but there are those others who we do not talk about, yet they also, because if you go to school, for instance, and you see a head teacher who is behaving in, you find that you're supposed to have 4 aggregates to be admitted to senior 1. But you find that this head teacher, if you just have to have around 10 aggregates, you know, at P7, and you just have to have a few millions, and then you secure a slot for yourself.
Well, what some people call the scotch of the nation.
Exactly.
The entire national infrastructure and the nation is at stake.
It's at stake, yes. And like the IGG says, it is now very complicated and sophisticated. And I can tell you, it will be very hard for us to get out of this. I will tell you, there's this former president who I think I've forgotten the name of, either the Cuban president who put the brother on gun,
Fidel Castro.
Yeah, Fidel Castro, who put his brother on firing squad because of corruption, you know. And I think, really, Mr. President, if you want to fight corruption, the best way would be, for instance, to get those people who have been caught corrupt and have been implicated, get a few of them, incarcerate them. But incarcerating that may not help. Put a few of them on firing squad. Tomorrow, you'll never hear anyone else, you know, being corrupt.
Well, but the question that many people would ask, of course, is that isn't the problem from the top, the top office in the land?
You see, the office of the president is a fountain of honor, and by design, he's a bit immune from some of these processes to find out.
Yes.
So for us to implicate him that he's also corrupt.
No, not implicating him, the people around him, probably.
Yes, of course. There's no doubt. There are very many. Someone, Sitavan usually says that they are mafias in the State House. And indeed, they are very many. And the corruption that happens there is high class. If we are talking about grades, the other one is grade 1. So, but again, you see, it is not easy for instance, the president to realize that these people actually are corrupt. For as long as they do what he wants, and he never gets to know the funny things that they do, he can never know. But for me, I think the best way, even without us looking at the top office and all those offices, I think the best way would be to examine ourselves, every one of us individually, because at every level that you go to, you will find that there's some bit of corruption. You have gone to banks where you find long queues, and then you find someone who wants even to pay money to the askari to allow them jump the queue. Yeah? You have gone to hospitals where you find people lining up, patients lining up, and this one comes and feels that they have a sense of entitlement and they cannot line up with the others, and they have to go, you know, to jump the queue and see the doctor. You have gone to classes where you find that in the class other children are doing this ABC, and there's this child who feels that for them they cannot wait and they must do ABCD and jump the queue. So I want to think that corruption starts with each one of us, in our hearts, and you know it's a game of the mind. That even before you come here to say, Billy, you get out of that chair and I sit, there is already a conception in your mind that that guy is not supposed to be there. I should be there, and therefore I should get them out of there. You have seen people, because they have money, they evict the poor people from their land. And because they have access to maybe guns and access to police and all political power. And you find people languishing in poverty, yet they have what would be belonging to them. And these things do not only happen here in Kampala, even in the villages. So, for me, I actually think that the problem is much bigger with us, the local people, because it is us who are perpetuating this. Once we do these things, then we lose the moral authority to actually
ask the leaders what they're doing about it.
The other day, someone was talking about the corrupt political leaders, but I was like, hey, look, these leaders, before they get into leadership, they first corrupt you to vote for them.
And many of them were average citizens of the country.
Exactly. So they pay you money to vote for them. You don't refuse the money, you eat the money, and you vote for them. When they go there, you don't expect them to behave properly because yourself, they know you support that kind of behavior. So on that ground, we lose the fight against corruption. And that's why I say that sometimes I think we need divine intervention, because I think God knows how to do this. You remember in the Bible when Eve and Adam misbehaved. Huh? Whoever corrupted the other, I do not know. I don't want to start that argument of gender equality and all that. But you remember that God came and pronounced punishments
on both of them.
On both of them. And I think it has worked until today. I don't know if, for instance, there were no punishments on some of these things. If, for instance, we say that adultery, if there were no punishments against adultery, if there were no punishments against theft, if there were no punishments about ABCD, I do not know where we would be. So I want to think that for us to be much better placed to fight corruption, we need to first re-examine our hearts and ourselves and change our perception and have a belief that it is possible to do things the right way without necessarily corrupting.
So someone would probably be asking, someone out there would be asking, besides the punitive measures, the punishments and the likes, what can Uganda do as a country? Because this is a national problem. It's an epidemic, let's say. Services are not reaching the people they're supposed to reach. People die, there are no drugs in the hospitals. The doctors do not show up, and when they show up, sometimes they ask for bribes. Extortion is an occurrence on a daily.
Sure.
What can Uganda do as a country to walk away from this, country, and so that 100 years from now we would still have a country?
You see, yesterday I was thinking about the leadership of the countries we call great nations today. Talk about the USA, talk about those countries, France and all those, which are somewhere, at least in the level of development, that we can say they are developed. And I was asking myself, what did the leaders of these countries do 100 years ago that made them be on the path to development, and we are able to see where they are today? And in my heart, I convinced myself that suddenly, those leaders, number one, they were not corrupt. Number two, they knew that their country was bigger than them, and their country needed to thrive. Number three, they knew that they had to serve the people, irrespective of whether they would benefit from their service or the people coming out after them would benefit. Number three, they had a vision. And they always dreamt of ensuring that the country can thrive much better. Having said that,
well, our leaders as well have prosperity dreams of prosperity for the country.
For themselves, but not for the country. So my thinking, and this is my opinion, Uganda as a country must get out of the sleeping, status and appreciate that, hey, we have a country to build. We have a future to live.
We have a nation to build.
We have a nation to build. We have generations to lay foundation for. And we have dreams to achieve as a country. Once we do that, then we shall definitely get on the right path and follow the right processes and do the right things, have the right perception, have the right attitude, talk to the right people, put the right people in leadership, do the right education and all these things, and surely we shall get there. But for as long as we are still in this kind of wishful thinking, that we shall do ABCD, we shall, for instance, get money meant to do a road, and then we shall do 2 layers, and then we shall take 10 layers and eat them. And we still think that we shall be on the path of development. We are lying to ourselves, and these things will never come to pass.
Well, that was the Executive Director, the CEO of Youth Aide Africa, discussing corruption with us here at Kyokwijuka Television, the head show. Let's go for a break, but when we come back, it will be how it's made, and then after that, we shall have Standard Magazine. Stay tuned.